Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. It's Monday, and I have been thinking about this video for a long time. I'm honestly quite intimidated by this video because it is a subscriber story, and I love telling subscriber stories, but this is one about somebody who's much younger than me, much cooler than me, and it's about the military. And I have zero experience with the military. My grandfather was in World War II, but I know nothing about that service because he passed away when I was 9 years old. And the stories went with him because my grandmother didn't tell them. And nobody in my family, my parents were both elementary school teachers. My other grandfather was a factory worker. Everybody was a teacher, factory worker, things like that. And nobody has been in the military. And so when I got this story, I thought, oh, I don't understand some of these details. So I did some research, and I asked him some questions too, but I really don't, I hope I get this right, is what I'm concerned about. And I'm sure you'll let me know nicely in the comments if I don't. I even went so far as to clear the video title and thumbnail with Jarrett, just to make sure I wasn't crossing a line or doing anything inappropriate. First of all, this is about a young man named Jarrett, who's 25 years old now, or he was when he wrote to me first in March, so maybe he's 26 by now. He wrote to me in March saying that he had been watching my channel while deployed overseas in Jordan. Jordan is west of Iraq and south of Syria, if I remember correctly, in the Middle East. And he loved my channel and asked if there were any card shows. He's from Massachusetts and was going to be home within a couple of weeks. And I'm from Maine, so I said, yeah, I might be going to the Shriner show in April. And I ended up meeting him at the Shriner show, and he gave me this along with another gift. This was part of his uniform, and I think, if I remember correctly, it goes on the uniform upside down. And I researched why, and I don't remember now why. Somebody can put it in comments. But it went into Syria with him. So very, very special, and I thank Jarrett for this. I keep it in a card sleeve, and it's awesome gift from Jarrett. So Jarrett has a great story, and so I'm gonna do my best to tell it. It requires a lot of notes. It is he spent his whole life collecting, basically. Jarrett started collecting in around 2004. He says he was 6 years old at the time, or I think he was born in 98, so I did some quick math because that's easy. His grandfather, who is a lifelong baseball fan. Jarrett actually sent me a picture of his grandfather's jersey from playing in a Massachusetts summer league in the 1940s, a picture of the jersey, I should say. And his grandfather traveled down to spring training for the Red Sox and met Ted Williams a few times, his favorite player. Traveled down into his late 60s. His grandfather got him into collecting in 2004 when he signed Jarrett and his cousins up for the Red Sox Kid Nation program, which they sent you get a box with a welcome package which had hats and pins and other things like that. It also had a handwritten and signed note by a current player, and Jarrett's current player was Trot Nixon, who was also my favorite player. A little known fact, back in the mid-2000s at the company I worked at, my password on work stuff was related to Trot Nixon's name. It's no longer anymore, so don't try to hack me. But at the time, it was related to Trot Nixon because he was my favorite player. He was the Dirt Dog, the original Dirt Dog. And Jarrett's favorite player became Trot Nixon because of this welcome letter he received from Trot. At the bottom of this welcome package, there were some cards, and that's what triggered Jarrett's lifelong love for sports cards and other things, which we'll talk a little bit about. So after this, Jarrett found a few local card shops to him in Massachusetts, including a shop called Sports Collectibles. So it's always interesting how many sports card shops and collectible shops have generic names like that, and they work because people like us are looking for shops about that stuff, and there are so few of them that the generic names work so well. So he begged and begged his mother to take him to Sports Collectibles. She finally agreed, and he went. And it's such a great story. It's a family-owned company in business since the mid-1980s. At the time, it was owned by Alan and Sandra. Jarrett picked out a bag, and he was able to fill it with junk wax era packs for only $20, and he was so excited. When he walked up to the counter, Alan, the owner, handed him a bunch of 9 pocket sheets filled with cards and said, "Congratulations, you're a winner." What a great way to get kids excited and involved in the hobby. He thinks he was about 7 or 8 years old at this time. Sadly, Alan and his wife passed away within days or weeks of each other in January of 2022. Their sons keep the shop going today, though. About a year later, Jarrett says that his father's employer gave Jarrett's dad the opportunity to clean out his rental property, which was a warehouse. And so Jarrett would go on the weekends with the entire family and start pulling stuff out. And they were given the choice: you can keep stuff, you can sell stuff, you can throw stuff away, just get rid of it, essentially. And it was so much stuff that they were bringing it back on pallets and storing it on their driveway until they were able to go through it and figure out what to do with it all. So this also kind of cultivated Jarrett's love for collectibles, because in this warehouse were vintage antiques. There were some sports cards, other collectibles, things like that. Eventually, Jarrett's family started doing yard sales to sell stuff, and then their neighbor came over and said, "Hey, I set up at a flea market selling antiques. You should take some of your nicer stuff and set up at this flea market and sell some of your stuff there." Jarrett does note that there was not anything big from the warehouse. It just was one of those moments in his life, or not even a moment, it was several years, where they were doing yard sales and then ultimately the flea markets. So his dad set up for several years at the flea market, and because of Jarrett's mom's schedule, Jarrett and his brothers would go with their dad on the weekends to sell stuff at this flea market because they were too young to be left home alone. Over time, his dad learned a lot about this, really enjoyed it, and started buying and reselling things at the yard sale or at the flea market. And Jarrett decided one day, at a very young age, it sounded like maybe 9 or 10, after a couple of years of doing this, to bring some of his cards and try to sell them at the flea market. And he says that they sold really well, and he was really surprised and happy. And then he started doing it for several years while learning how to do it successfully, buying and selling basically arbitrage of sports cards and other collectibles. Then he would set up next to his father. What a great story. Love this stuff. So in high school, Jarrett didn't really have a direction in life. He assumed after high school he would go to college, but as a freshman, he signed up for the Air Force Junior ROTC program. Now, when I was a kid, I heard people pronounce this as ROTC, but I've since heard that this is kind of pejorative, so I'm going to stick with the pronunciation of ROTC. Again, tell me if I'm wrong, but Jarrett, this was the school's program, or through the school, I guess. Jarrett loved it. He even became part of the color guard. He did events all over Massachusetts, including 2 at Fenway Park, where he was part of the color guard there. Really cool. I mean, he's got pictures of himself doing color guard at Fenway Park. And then his grandfather had also been in the Air Force in Korea, and so they bonded over that. In addition to the sports cards, his grandfather's obviously a big part of his life. Great bonding between him and his grandfather and his father. Then, because he loved being part of the ROTC program, he enlisted in the Massachusetts Army National Guard in the summer of 2019. By the end of the year, he was beginning his 1-station unit training at Fort Benning, Georgia. 6 months later, he's headed home as COVID hit. but 2020 was a huge year for the National Guard. He was getting activated over and over and over again for various things. And then in the summer of 2021, his unit was just deployed to Jordan. And I already mentioned where Jordan is. He went over to Jordan for 9 months. He says it was a completely life-changing experience that he wouldn't change for the world. As I said, that was the summer of 2021. Must have been the summer of 2022. I think we got our dates wrong here because he got back in March of 2023. So maybe he got deployed twice. I'm not really sure. He'll correct me, I'm sure. I'm confident that I'm wrong, not him. He says that while he was overseas, collecting was very difficult, as you can imagine. But he bought boxes to rip while there. Not sports cards, though. He's what he calls a history nerd, and he bought boxes of historic autographs to open and rip. He also ordered boxes online to send to his home that he could open when he got home. He also spent hours watching YouTube and reading articles to keep up with hobby stuff. And he said that my 56-day video streak was a big part of that, which was very, very flattering. You know, I did that, and I thought, every day I thought, am I going to annoy more people with another video today? And I'm so glad to find that one person appreciated daily content. He also watched Chris Sewell, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order, as well as sports card investor and other hobby YouTube staples. He says it kept his love for the hobby alive. It inspired him to become more involved when he returned. Jarrett says that returning in the last few months has been difficult. Getting back into civilian life, I can only imagine, and it's got to be difficult. But he says that hasn't been easy. Said some days have been easier than others. He says things just feel different than they did before he was deployed. He says that he was very lucky on his deployment. There were far more easy days than there were difficult days, but the couple of days that were difficult were very, very scary. He never saw action, but he says they were very close a couple of times, and as you can imagine, that's got to be pretty scary. The thing that's kept him positive, kept him happy since getting back, has been collecting. And he has been going to more shows, more flea markets, buying more stuff online, and not just sports. As I said, he's into history type stuff. So he's got a really interesting, eclectic collection. Actually, I'll go through some photos right now. So, for instance, he's got some modern stuff. He's got a BGS 9.5 Mike Trout rookie card. Pretty good. 3 Tom Brady rookies. He has a Shohei SGC 10 rookie card. Tons of great vintage cards in there, which you wouldn't expect from a guy who's 25 or 26 years old. A bunch of Ted Williams relics. It's Boston, New England heavy, as you can imagine. A lot of other Boston relics and autos. It's got a 50s Topps vending box. I just talked about a 55 Topps vending box in my video yesterday. So cool to see that Jarrett has a late 50s Topps vending box in his collection. He's got vintage bats, gloves, and face masks. 1960s Sears glove with the original box. Like, who keeps the box? I think that's so cool. 1974 Penn State football. He thinks it's team signed, sending it off to PSA for authentication. Tom Brady signed hat. 1967 Red Sox newspaper souvenir from 1968. He has some 19th century Cooperstown bank checks. Pretty cool. He has some unopened All-American football matches and some unopened vintage rugby and football toys. So you can see he's not just into cards, he's really into collectibles as a whole, which I think is super cool. So since getting back, he's been really focused on enhancing, improving his buying and selling business. He's trying to turn it, it's a side hustle, he's trying to turn it into more of a part-time, legitimate business, and maybe in the long term, a full-time gig. Shop owners have been a big help to him. He says that his ROTC instructor said to him, "If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life," and that has stuck with him. So I want you to go onto Instagram and follow basement underscore 692 underscore collectibles. Putting it up here on the screen. Go follow him. I think he's just getting started, so you're not going to go in there. I think he has 5 or 6 pictures on his Instagram. He's new. I'm really excited for Jarrett. I'm hoping to see him again at the Shriner show. We didn't really have time to talk at the last Shriner show, but I hope we get a chance to at this next one. Jarrett, you have an awesome story. I wish you the best of luck on collecting and your business and your ultimately re-entry into civilian life. Thank you for letting me share your story and trusting me with it. I hope I did it justice. Whew. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you all soon.